All right, everybody, it's Chris Reynolds with the All Pro Teams Talks. We're excited today to have a special guest. He's near and dear to somebody's heart, I'm sure. Mr. Andrew Lovvorn from Tisinger. He's an attorney here in town, and we've done a good bit of business with each other, good and bad, mostly good. But what I want to ask you first, can we talk off the record for a moment?
Absolutely.
Okay, this is going to get fun and interesting. So closing day. So as a realtor, we get into these transactions, and big thing with us as All Pro Team, we like to be a part of people's story. Like, God placed us here, put us in this place to help them get there. But there's always that dreaded closing day. It's exciting when you walk away, but it's like, do I have everything? Am I prepared for this? Let's talk a little bit about just the closing day. What are some of the things that people have to do to prepare for that moment of signatures on paper?
The way we like to look at it from the attorney perspective is really the heavy lifting should be done prior to closing.
Right, okay.
So the closing, if everything is done right, is just the fun celebration, right? So hopefully we're sitting in closings, everybody's, smiling, and hey, all the
no surprises.
Yep, that heavy lifting by the realtors on both sides,
Yeah.
the lender, attorney, everything's done prior to closing. Doesn't always happen that way, but typically it does. Leading up to a closing, most attorneys use a closing program. Ours happens to be Qualia, but
Qualia.
there's Soft Pro, there's Land Tech. Those are the three biggest programs. So typically people gather the information through those secure portals before closing. And then, assuming we get all the information we need, that sets it up nicely. There's a lot of times when we get a file, say y'all send us a title for 123 Main Street, we'll get it. We'll have all the information we need from a buyer and seller the next day.
Yeah.
So all we have to do is set up the file, do the title exam, and then wait on the lender, or if it's a cash closing, just wait on everybody to set it up.
Because there's other stuff outside of y'all. I mean, those lenders, getting all that information in.
Yep.
So you're not always waiting on the attorney.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Sometimes lenders like to say they're waiting on us, but no. But as far as the closing day itself, the most important thing is oftentimes we're waiting on a wire.
Sure.
We've all been at the closing table where we're waiting on either the buyer's wire or the lender's wire. That happens. I'd probably say maybe a quarter to a third of closings where we're waiting on that. So, as a buyer, it's important to get your wire out. I'd say at least by 2 o'clock the prior day.
Right.
And then
you don't want to do anything the day before closing. Most of that stuff, because it's like you're going to wait on some of this because y'all got to wait on it.
Right.
And so if you want to be prompt, on time, clear to close, good to go, get all your stuff in.
Right. If it is a loan closing,
Yeah.
lenders have to disclose your numbers to you 3 days prior to closing. Those numbers can sometimes fluctuate a little bit, but 3 days prior to closing, you should have the numbers so that you can get the wire out to us.
Perfect.
It doesn't always work perfectly, but typically there is a few days where that can come together, and getting that wire sent out at minimum the day before, but like 2 days or even 3 days before would be ideal to make sure that's in.
So once you get a package from us, hey, we're under contract, we're coming to you, we're going to close. What are some of the things you guys are checking out before we ever get there? You mentioned title.
I'll just start from the beginning. So y'all send us a title request. Okay, the most important thing to come along with that title request is the party's contact information, mainly an email, so that we can send out the information through Qualia and so forth. So that really starts the flow of information. And then, any termite reports, appraisals, any invoices that need to be collected at closing, commission. I at a realtor luncheon months ago, we got to roast y'all a little bit. And one of the things I pointed on was your commission agreement.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all like to get paid. We want to pay you. So getting that commission agreement in.
See, we don't just do it for the money. We forget to tell the attorney, hey, we would like to get paid. Yeah.
And I know Molly Jones from Michael and Gray, and then Jerry Till. We were all up there, and it's not just our office thing. They want to pay y'all as well. So
that's on us. That's on us.
But that is. Really just having all that information to us ahead of time. Some agencies, some real estate offices do like pay at close and stuff. Make sure to get that to us beforehand as well. It's nice to know before somebody walks in if the seller wants a wire or a check. That's not imperative to have, but sometimes it's nice for them to fill out the wiring information beforehand.
Sure.
But really, just anything that just keep us in the loop, anything that comes up on the file along the way. But we get it. Y'all start providing that information. Our role is we do the title exam.
Yeah.
So,
which is exactly what?
So, Georgia law, the title standards. So, closings are governed by title standards, meaning that we have to comply by preset standards to close something. So a title has to meet all those standards in order to be able to close. So we do 50-year title exams.
Okay.
And every attorney should be doing a 50-year because that's what the title standard. And everybody locally is fine, but there are some fly-by. Yeah, we have seen it on many times where people are doing just current owner check downs and stuff like that.
And that'll hurt you if somebody comes back around.
Absolutely. Yes. So you always want to make sure as a buyer that your attorney is doing a 50-year title search to make sure that everything is good to prevent, because it's not just, hey, Chris is selling a house to Andrew. Let's just check and make sure Chris is good. Okay, well, if Dwayne owned it before Chris, then, Dwayne had issues, then Dwayne's issues could flow down to us.
Even if I didn't know anything about it.
Even if you didn't know anything about it. That's exactly right.
So how do you protect yourself if there is something in the past that you don't know about?
So obviously we do the title exam to make sure everything's clean. But sometimes the records just don't have stuff can fall through the crack in many ways. But title insurance is the biggest thing. So in closings, there's two types of insurance.
Okay.
So you have owner's title insurance and lender's title insurance, and they're just what they sound like. The owner's title insurance protects the owner of the property. The lender's title insurance protects the lender's interest in the property. If you're getting a loan, you have to get the lender requires that you pay for that. The owner's title insurance is optional, but I'd say 99.99% of people get it because it is truly the one way to protect your ownership of the property.
Okay. So it is optional.
It is optional, but Phil Wilkins, my partner at Tisinger Vance, puts it like this. So he always asks people that say, oh, I might not get it. He said, okay, well, do you have fire insurance on your house? And they're like, oh, yes, of course. And he said, well, do you know a title claim is more likely than a fire claim? And that always makes people, oh, okay, maybe I do need it then. But overwhelmingly, most people get it. And as for any realtors that are tuning into the podcast, I would say always be very careful and mindful about you never want to be caught telling your client not to get it.
Right.
And I think most realtors know that.
Sure.
But if you put something in writing or whatever, say, oh, you don't need title insurance, then they need a title claim, you're looking at a malpractice claim.
Right.
So that is something to be very mindful of as a realtor.
That's a different conversation.
Yeah.
With an attorney.
That is not as cheerful as this one is.
We're not eating lunch together on that one.
No.
So that title insurance, it protects you. So say somebody does come lay claim on something. Is that where that kind of buys into? Is there that company's going to fight that for you? Are you in charge of getting an attorney? What does that look like?
Yes. So how it works is, yes, if somebody does come back and say, hey, I actually own your property, or I got this claim against it, or whatever, the title insurance is there to protect that. And they do have legal departments that they are supposed to then grab and run with it. So that is, yes, that is in theory that you have an insurance company there to fight. Just like if you're represented by State Farm and you're in a vehicle accident, State Farm then has their legal team handle everything on your behalf.
Yeah, Jason Templeton.
Absolutely.
Make it happen. He's my insurance guy. Better show up if something happens. And we've had him on the podcast in the past too. He's a good guy.
Did the lights not reflect off his head?
You know, I'm gonna plead the fifth.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you've heard that term before.
Had to dim the lights down a little bit.
He is a little shiny. He is a little shiny. So that's awesome. So, I mean, some big takeaways here is making sure that kind of everything happens on the front end. Right. Once you get a closing date, the only things you need to be worried about is don't leave the lamp on when you leave your old house. Bring that lamp with you.
Right.
You know, everything else should just be fun. What are some, give me one just off the top of your head. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Give me a funny closing story or a nightmare closing story or something that you can advise our viewers. Please don't let this happen to you.
I've got a few, and they're all pretty short. So, one is a handful of years ago. Phil had a closing where this isn't funny, but the seller perished in our waiting room.
No.
Yep.
Before the closing.
Before the yes, he's
like you're about to go in.
He's sitting in the waiting room waiting to come back on the closing, and
oh my.
And he God called him home.
So he decided no title insurance that day. Gosh.
And then another one happened a few years ago. Oh, I will never not remember this. But Blake Ginger, local realtor.
Yep.
You may have heard
21.
this. Yep. He had his seller get arrested for a felony at the closing table. The cops show up and arrest her at the table. That was eventful.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And then
so what do you do?
In we were so fortunate that day because it was the first of a back to back, so 4 closings in a row.
Okay.
She was selling, buying something with cash next, and then 2 more after that.
So did she sign in cuffs?
She'd already signed her part. And the cop arrested her, put her in handcuffs, and Blake comes to him. He's like, Andrew, what do we do? He's like, we got to close an ad for this. And it was at a different office.
Oh, gosh.
So I called that office. I'm like, hey, can we call it? Here's what's going on. Can we do it with the power of attorney? And the cops were gracious enough to unhandcuff her and let her sign a power of attorney authorizing Blake to sign on her behalf. So all the closings still went through, but she got. I don't think she enjoyed her new home for a little while.
Shout out to Blake Ginger for going above and beyond as a realtor.
Absolutely.
And, maybe we got to be a little better at picking our clients out. Wow.
But everybody that knows Blake, he's such a nice guy, and that was like that was a. Tense or just
I mean, you can't make it up.
You can't. You really can't. Like you can't. I opened the door because the cop came to our handicap entrance that stays locked.
Right.
And he comes to it and he says, "Is Miss Seller here?" And I'm like, "Yes, she's in a closing." And
There you go.
There you go. He arrested her.
So forget all the other takeaways. The key is get your record straight before you ever start dealing with real estate.
Yep.
Save us all some time. But, hey, it was a good laugh.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yes, we all had a good laugh once it got done, for sure.
For sure. Well, I appreciate your time, man. Hopefully this is good information for you guys. Obviously, back to what Andrew said, when you get to the closing day, that's the fun part. So you got to put in the work. That's our job, to kind of work with you guys and help our sellers and our buyers be prepared for that. And obviously a shout out for title insurance, because goodness, I know a lot of people, and there's some in the crowd that think, oh, it's just another scam, all this. I'm telling you, I know people who have had to use it, and it is good to have. So, and we would never tell anybody not to insure stuff. But ultimately, if you have any questions, obviously Andrew Lovvorn at Tisinger, all the Tisinger crew are great friends of ours, and will treat you right. And man, just thanks for coming on the podcast with us.
Glad to do it.
I can't wait to hear some incredible stories. Hopefully, I get to have a I don't want anybody dying or getting arrested, but there's got to be something I can bring to the table eventually.
Yeah, you need to work on that. So.
All right, we'll see you guys next time, and thanks for tuning in.
All right, thank you for having me.